Hey, it's Alex from European Coffee Trip, and in this video we will show you 3 different recipes how you can make cold coffee at home or in the office. We will talk about cold brew, chilled brew, and coffee on ice or Japanese iced coffee, so check it out. So let's talk first about cold brew. It takes longest to prepare, so we should start with that. So what do you need? We actually need the jar. So we find a 1 liter jar that makes it easy for us to prepare. Then we chose to use 90 grams of coffee and 900 milliliters of water. So we choose the ratio 1 to 10. And this also varies depending on the strength of coffee you would like to have. For us, the resulting coffee should have like kind of drinkable strength. So something that we can just pour to the glass or add a few cubes of ice and it's fine. So first you need to grind your coffee. We chose the coarsest grind setting on our grinder. And we use cold water or room temperature water and we just mix it together in the jar and put it into the fridge for 12 hours. So that was our recipe. Basically we did it in the evening and in the morning we had the coffee ready to filter. So next step is actually you need to filter coffee from the coffee ground. So we just use our Chemex and paper filter. You can use V60 or whatever paper filter you can use and just separate the coffee from the ground. And then it's done. You have your cold brewed coffee. Let's talk about advantages and disadvantages. So advantage of cold brew coffee is that you can make it in a bigger volume. We choose the 1 liter jar, but you can obviously use a bigger jar, or there are the systems that you can make 5, 10, even more liters of cold brew coffee. And then you can actually use it as an ingredient. So we chose the ratio 1 to 10 and that results into the easily drinkable coffee that you don't dilute with anything else. But if you choose the different ratio, if you use less water, you can have more of a concentrate that you can then dilute with more ice or with milk. Or very popular mix is with tonic. So cold brew tonic is very refreshing and very nice during the summer days. So when we talk about disadvantages, the biggest one is that it takes long to make it. Obviously the recommendation range from 8 to 24 hours. So obviously you need to plan in advance and make sure you have enough time. Another disadvantage is the taste. There are people who loves cold brews and there are people who hates it. And we are somewhere in between. But obviously there is a lack of bitterness, but also lack of acidity in most of cold brews. You need to accept it or use maybe the coffee that has a significantly more acidity in itself, so you can still find it even if you use cold water to extract it. So the next recipe is Japanese iced coffee or coffee on ice. We will use V60 for this recipe, and normally we use 15 grams of coffee and 250 grams of water. So what will be different in this recipe that half of this volume will be in the form of ice cubes and half of it will be in the form of hot water, 94 degrees. Make sure that you rinse your paper filter outside of the decanter, because otherwise you would have a paper taste inside of your coffee. Then you grind your coffee. You grind it a little bit finer because the resulting time of extraction should be quite similar to the traditional method, so about 2 to 2.5 minutes. And that's the biggest difference. So once you start pouring hot water over coffee grounds, you see the ice cube starts melt, and then by the time you finish pouring, you have your cold coffee. So you have your cold coffee almost no time. So the biggest advantage of this method is its speed. It's very fast. By the time you finish pouring, you already have your iced coffee and you can start drinking it. So that's great. Another advantage that it's fairly similar to the traditional method when it comes to the taste, also when it comes to the procedure. So you don't need that many adjustments. The biggest disadvantage of this method is that you need ice. And ideally you want ice made from good tasting water so it doesn't influence the taste of the resulting coffee. That's number one. Then you need to have slightly adjusted recipe and slightly adjusted grind size. And also it's a little bit more complicated to make it in bigger batches. So these are the disadvantages of Japanese iced coffee. So the next recipe is chilled brew, and this recipe is very straightforward because you brew your coffee normally and cool it down once it's finished. So in our case we use V60, we use 15 grams of coffee and 250 grams of hot water. We brew it and once it's finished we put it into the fridge. You need to make sure that you change the jar, you pour it into the metal one or something that doesn't break when hot things meets cold things. So that's something we need to warn you. And we just put it there for a few minutes to hours, depending how cold you want your coffee to be. And that's it. That's how you make chilled brew. The biggest advantage of this method is that it's very similar to what you are used to when you brew coffee hot. So it doesn't influence the taste of coffee as much as other methods. And probably the main reason is that you don't dilute the coffee with anything else. There are some disadvantages. It takes time to make it. So once you brew it, you need to wait at least a few minutes, but usually a few hours in order to make it. So this is probably the biggest disadvantage of this method. And there is one guy called Tim Vendelbo, and he mentioned in his recipe one thing that is almost radical. In this kind of brewing, you can add sugar. And the reason is that it emphasizes the acidity in the coffee, especially if you are using African coffee. So maybe this time, even in black coffee, you can add some sugar. So we hope that you enjoyed this video. We had a great fun tasting, brewing and checking all different recipes how to make cold coffee in our office. And it's actually a nice way to experiment during the summer because there will be a lot of really tasty African coffees, and I think the African coffees are the best for iced coffee or cold coffee brewing. So big encouragement for you to give it a try, and let us know if you have any favorite method how you make coffee during the summer, or how you drink or make your cold coffee. Let us know, we would love to try. And if you like this video, smash the like button, subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Thank you, bye bye.